Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Lobiondo. My questions are really questions about Alaska, Admiral. The Coast Guard is currently implementing Rescue 21 program in the lower 48. This improved system of radio receivers can better determine the location of the vessel making the emergency calls. This reduces the number of hoax calls and greatly reduces time spent searching for, rather than rescuing, vessels and mariners in distress. Obviously, given the distances that are needed to be covered in Alaska waters, any reduction in the time spent searching prior to beginning rescue work will be greatly improved. Now, what is the timeline for the Coast Guard plan to get Rescue 21 in operation in Alaska?
Sir, Alaska, as you know, poses some unique challenges in terms of geography, weather, and even the remoteness of many of the locations where we envision placing Rescue 21 towers. The remoteness makes it more difficult for logistical support. We anticipate beginning the process of establishing Rescue 21 in Alaska in this present fiscal year, 2010. But it is a multi-year process. It will be several years before Rescue 21 is fully established in Alaska. We will concentrate initially in the port areas, the major port areas. The staff has identified over 50 sites where Rescue 21 towers would need to be established. But again, this is a multi-year process. I would also add, sir, that Coast Guard is very aware of the unique hazards in operating off Alaska for mariners, and it's also very much not only in their interest but in the Coast Guard's interest to have a system in place that improves our ability to identify a vessel in distress in its location as rapidly as possible and to get our assets on scene as rapidly as possible. So we share that interest in making this happen quickly.
Well, Admiral, I hope we pursue this more rapidly because there is a difference in distances, and line sight works maybe in the lower 48. It's not practical in Alaska, so we're going to have to come up with a better mousetrap to make sure it works, because this is crucially important, because we do have hoax calls. We do have things that occur that impede the rescue of those that are truly in danger. So I hope you do that. Second question. As you know, there's currently virtually no maritime domain awareness infrastructure in the Arctic. This point was highlighted in the Arctic Council's Arctic Marine Shipping Assessment that was released earlier this year, and the House has passed legislation based on legislation I introduced to begin addressing this issue. The Coast Guard has alleged for several years now to be conducting an Arctic mission needs analysis. When will that mission needs analysis be completed and available for review?
Yes, sir. We are conducting what we call a high latitude study, which will support the mission needs analysis. That is ongoing. We anticipate that will be completed late spring, early summer of 2010.
Would the requirement of the use of Alaska state pilots on vessels working in the U.S. Arctic provide an additional layer of protection for the Arctic environment and the mariners working there?
Sir, I'd like to get back to you on the record for that one. I think there are some issues associated with proposed pilotage legislation in Alaska that have been somewhat problematic, and I'd like to give you a more very carefully thought out response.
I appreciate it. I don't want to try to put you on the spot, but I'm quite interested in this issue. I'm in crosshairs with some people that are going to be working up there, but I do believe that additional pilotage would be good for the safety of the area, and it's relatively inexpensive. And the state would also be responsible then if something was to occur, whereby if they're not, the companies may be responsible. That doesn't relieve the possibility of an accident. The rationale for bigger, more expensive naval security cutters was that the SCSs would use ship-based unmanned aerial vehicles. The use of UAVs would dramatically increase the number of square nautical miles that the NSC can effectively patrol. This expanded range is for a great concern in the Bering Sea for fisheries enforcement against foreign fishing intrusions, search and rescue, and environmental protection. In other parts of the Coast Guard's mission area, this expanded coverage is important to drug and migrant interdiction. The Coast Guard has wisely decided that it lacks the resources to develop its own UAV system, but is looking at a land and ship base being developed by other entities. What is the status of the Coast Guard UAV program?
Yes, sir. There are essentially two programs being considered. There's a land-based UAV program that we are looking at with actually Customs and Border Protection is in the lead, and we're cooperating with them. And we anticipate having the first prototype testing beginning after the first of the year. This is essentially a Predator B platform with that's marinized with sensors that can look down and detect vessels on the surface. That will begin very shortly. The second program is a ship-based program, and we're working quite honestly with the Navy and trying to leverage their technology and the work that they've done, particularly in their Fire Scout is one of the options that we've considered, and that is ongoing as part of the Deepwater Recapitalization Program.
The Coast Guard has a contract for the 6th-based firm to conduct cold weather training for the Coast Guard personnel. Unfortunately, the Coast Guard is only exercising this option for the 8 of the possible 16 training courses this year. And why isn't the Coast Guard fulfilling its obligation, I think, to train those people in the cold water system of Alaska? That is crucially important. You're cut back in half is what you've done.
Sir, I confess I'm not familiar with that particular program, so if you permit me, I'll get back to you on the record for that.
I thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have one other question. Do I have time to do this?
Go ahead.
Like Rescue 21 tracking vessels using automatic identification system, it requires a line of sight coverage, which is very expensive in Alaska. How does the Coast Guard intend to implement AIS coverage in Alaska?
Sir, there will be AIS coverage. It's will be more focused around the major port areas such as Anchorage, Juneau, Valdez, and also in the Unimac Passage. There will be some considerable gaps in that coverage. In the interim, we are exploring the possible use of satellite-based AIS technology, and we're evaluating its usefulness. So there is some coverage. It's not as frequent as you would have with a land-based system, but we are looking at that as a potential solution in the future.
Admiral, has the Coast Guard made a plan for disposition of the Loran Sea sites once the program is discontinued next year?
No, sir, that is still pending. As I'm sure you're aware, the Loran Sea system we believe has largely outlived its usefulness as a signal. Most mariners have moved beyond that to a GPS technology. As far as the disposition of the sites, that decision still pens, sir.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I agree. Thank you, gentlemen. I would like you to get, if I could, get that back to me because that's important, that disposition of those sites.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.